feel like we're competing to see who gets to. You're gonna get there before me, but who knows? To 1,000 subscribers.
It's gonna be a very close match.
Welcome back to Christina's Garage, Gearhead in Training. I'm here for day 3 at SEMA 2024. It is really cool how many people that I've been able to interact with and continue building relationships with since the last year or the last few years. You're going to be able to see a couple of those people today. This is Rick. You might recognize him for some of the other videos that we've done together. And I really
just a little more gray every time, I think, Christina.
Hey, you look great. And if you guys saw the video from the first day, he was the announcer for the car reveal, and he's got so much charisma that it works out well. And you're a great speaker. So
I'll tell my wife you said that. Charisma is not a word she uses around me a lot of the time. So
my husband says I'm too much. So this is why we get along.
Right.
When putting my stuff together, my engine isn't put together yet, and when I was looking around at different, like the serpentine system, the setup, I wasn't really sure what I liked, and I had saw your stuff kind of online, and then I saw it in a shop on a car, and I knew right away that's what I wanted.
Right.
And I really like that it's very clean. It looks like it's a part of it without, like some of the other ones, it's great. Everybody's got their own taste.
That's exactly right.
I don't like it's too gaudy or just too much for my personal taste.
Right.
Would you mind explaining a little bit about how your front runner system works and how it kind of differs from others?
Yeah, our front runners now are over 25 years old. We were the originators of this, the drive system. That was one of Jack's things years ago, and the original basically engineering stuff with this was we wanted form following function. The whole thing was to, number one, mount the components independent of any of the heads or anything like that on a small block or anything. So it didn't matter what heads you used, it didn't matter what your deck height was, didn't matter what your intake manifold was. The system bolted to the front of the block because that was a common bolting place, mounting place for any of the small block Chevrolets. That was our first one. The second criteria was getting proper components, and then the third criteria was sizing the pulleys to spin those components at the right RPM to get the optimal performance out of them. So that was it. And then the other thing, a lot of water pump failures at the time. Our front runner was the first one to incorporate a spring tensioner into the system, like the OEMs do. And they do that, number one, belt stretch as the RPMs change and everything. You know, now it's very common in the industry, but at the time it was pretty revolutionary to have an aftermarket drive system that had a spring tensioner. So those were the design criteria initially. And it was designed around performance. Everybody knows Kyle Tucker from Detroit Speed. We worked with Kyle pretty extensively when we first introduced these. Nobody was running their cars any harder than Detroit Speed was. So he did a lot of the early testing with it because he was hammering. You know, you autocross, you're on the gas, you're off the gas, you're on the gas, you're off the gas. And that's really hard on the drive system because you're loading it, then you're unloading it. And the belt's got to be able to take up that. And that's what we did. So our performance was our first goal with this. Now, we wanted to look cool, of course, but performance and reliability was the first design criteria when we did it. So that's kind of a little background on it. We made sure we got the right components. We've made improvements over the years. Our initial front runner had the older style GM alternator, which is 140 amp, which was good for the time. But at lower RPM, that 12 SI alternator doesn't perform as well. So then we went to the hairpin style alternator, the one that GM uses now, and it's 170 amps peak available, but at idle you're getting 120, 130 amps out of it, which is what you need if you're running a brushless fan, or you're running a electric fuel pump, you're running your fuel injection, you're running a lot of those accessories. You've got to have that output even at lower RPM. So that was one improvement we made. And we're consistently upgrading them as things happen to make sure we're responding to the needs that are in the market.
Because before they didn't have a lot of them.
Ours always had an air conditioning compressor. Because that's would you really build a car without putting AC on it, you know?
Well, the other systems before didn't have that, and then you're talking about power steering and the ampage for the alternator. I'm learning more about that because I've had to change a couple of my husband's daily driver. That the amount of power, because you have more electronics, as you said, fuel injection, all these other things, the needs have been changing, and the look of this one looks like it's supposed to be that way. It doesn't look like you kind of added something on, or I like how it's compact, especially I have a small block, and I really like how it just looks very, very clean. If someone is looking to see if a front runner system from you guys is kind of where they're at, how do they determine, because I see that you have this is big block setup, small block setup.
This is actually an LS. This is our new cast LS.
Oh, cool.
So we have two versions for the LS. We have the one that's a whole casting that has the water pump in it, all integral, no everything, just bolting places for everything, all the mounting provisions are in there. You've got either a bottom or side outlet for your heater hoses and everything. So that's our LS, that's a Coyote. Small block you've seen, we also have a big block. So yeah, we've got some options. Our small block Ford is available as well, which is in a complete timing cover with all the mounting provisions incorporated into it. We forged a timing cover for the small block Ford. Go to our website, you can see what we've got available. We've got all the dimensional information there so you can see what the package size is. We pride ourselves on our Front Runner being the smallest package size that it can be.
I love that.
Both short and wide. And that's what helps you get in that tightest package envelope that you can. So that's a great way to find out. Again, our website has all the information. Everything's available there. We've got also our 800 number, 800-862-6658. Sales guys be happy to talk to you about it, answer any questions, get you all fixed up.
Awesome. And if you guys want to see more about their business, I've done a tour of their facility, looked at their open house, like the culture, the customer service is really great. So it's not only good product, not only functions well, you're supporting a company that really cares about their employees and cares about their customers and cares about the product overall. So it's just a really great company to support. So thank you so much, Rick. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Christina. Great to see you again.
If you guys remember Chuck Crossland, I've been following him for a little while. We've interviewed his daughter. You've seen his race car featured a lot in some of my other videos. We have not done an actual tour of your race car.
No, we haven't. We haven't really touched on it.
So would you mind starting from...
Start at the front, work our way back.
Yeah.
So the biggest, coolest part of it is the twin-turboed Brian Tooley Racing motor, power plant. So it's filled with all the good parts. It's center counterweight crank, so with that, we're taking some of the vibration and the torsion out of it by instead of being balanced at the ends, we're technically only balancing half of a crank at a time.
Interesting.
So it takes that shake out of the middle. The crankshaft wants to balance, kind of wants to float around in the middle, where a center counterweight crank gives us that little more stability, especially for the higher horsepower and higher RPMs. Shaft-mounted rockers, we've moved them on to, just to give the car the reliability that it needs. This motor's sitting on 2 seasons of absolute terror and abuse.
You drive rough.
We're a little hard on it, and I'm talking 2 seasons of, last year was full complete with Vegas to Reno of, 500 plus miles literally on boost all the time. And then we short course race it. And the cool part about we run the Holley engine management, controls everything. We run the same tune-up all the time. The car's just manageable and predictable. There was a lot of things that people said wouldn't work, couldn't be done. She'll show you on the side here, but up on top where the intake sticks out through, that's actually a 1,500 horsepower rated air-to-water intercooler.
That's a lot.
To handle all the extra heat from what the turbos are doing, we're running a separate radiator that then drops that air temp back down. So heat is always a killer. So if we can make the air charge colder, the car runs more efficient, makes more power, lives longer.
Well, and you guys usually, the last time I've come out to Prairie City, it's been like 100 degrees. So not only is it heat from here, it's external heat when you're actively racing.
Exactly. Our ambient cooling package, just to keep the cars cool. Everything we run CBR coolers, all brushless fans, so they're speeding up and slowing down. They're not just on, and all that's controlled through the Holley. So we can just keep everything run literally right at peak performance.
So what Holley system do you have that is running all of this?
So we run a Holley Dominator ECU, which is their big boy. It has pretty much all the inputs, outputs you could possibly configure and think about. I do tend to geek out and nerd out on it and monitor all that stuff. I'm for tuning and even just troubleshooting while we're driving the car. Say you're driving and all of a sudden you feel a misfire, so you're stopping to work on or you got the pit guys working on it, but that takes time. So we've actually put an EGT exhaust gas temperature in each cylinder, so I can monitor the temperature of each exhaust cylinder on the headers. So that gives me the ability to, I'm like, hey, the car doesn't feel right. Quick look at the dash and it says, well, yeah, number 6 cylinder is running 500 degrees colder than the rest.
And so with the Holley system, all of those numbers are on the dash within the Holley system. It shows.
Yeah, we run 2 7-inch dashes, one on my side, one on my co-driver's side, so we can keep them monitored to get everyone there. Just call in like, hey, no, it's number 6 is a problem. Spark plug wire, fuel injector wire, something like that. I mean, even the simplest of it, we run a fuel gauge. The amount of cars that I see that don't run fuel gauges boggles my mind. But it's all simple and easy to integrate. So now we can not have to guess, say, on our pit strategy. We can mathematically do it ahead of time. Like, no, we've still got half a tank. We're going.
And because you said you're 2 seasons in, you're getting to know your race car even more and making adjustments where you need to make it run even better.
Exactly. Yeah. The cars. Said this last season has kind of been finding the last bit of new car blues, and we're definitely looking forward to next year. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. Get out of the engine, we move on to transmission. We run Hughes Performance Turbo 400s with their converters. They build all the transmissions and converters for us. Roll into a 205 transfer case, the old school, just bulletproof 205s. With now the upgrade of a billet body. So we run Behemoth drivetrain has a billet 205 case, so no more cast iron.
And that helps with not only because your car is doing this, but if things kick up underneath too, right? Like to be able to handle.
Yeah, it can handle a lot more of the. I've broken 3 stock style cases, and mind you, these are in trucks that are in 1-ton dualies from the 80s. Big abused trucks. I've broken 3 of them in half. We've switched to this new case, and it just laughs at it. It doesn't even care.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Axles are both Spider Tracks, 4-inch, full pro housings, custom truss setup. Internals are all filled with Yukon and Brannick axle shafts, Yukon parts. Just to try to build the car to a point it's not going to just fall apart. And yet it's the simplest things that take you out. Yeah, we had a jam nut come loose at Hammers this year and let the axle shift, broke a driveline. Couldn't fix it because of how it broke.
Well, and everything's connected too. It's like one thing coming from the medical field and having my degree in physiology, a lot of it carries over mindset-wise to cars and vehicles, because if one thing happens, it connects to another thing that connects to another thing, and if you address this thing, then it like goes down to something else. And yep. There's the cool thing about a car though is that you can take it apart and look at things.
Right.
Unlike our bodies, you can't really, cut things open just on a whim. Yeah. Just like, well, let's look in here. So suspension stuff, that's even way different than anything else that you would see on other vehicles because of what you have to go through.
Definitely. Suspension on this car right now is running full King pure race shocks, internal bypass in the front, but the rear is where it gets really creative. We're only allowed 1 shock per corner for our class rules. Now, obviously, the advantage of having a bypass shock, because that gives you the tunability. So there's 5-6 tubes on the side of the shock, so you can adjust each zone that the shock's traveling in. You normally can't get away with that in a single shock car because that would be considered your second shock. So these are custom modified, custom built by a Liberty Mountain Fab who built the chassis. So we have a bypass shock, and then we modify it to put a coil carrier on the bottom of it. So our rear shock overall is like 4.5 feet long.
When it's
out of the car. It still only has the 16 inches of shock travel, but it was the workaround of the rule book. So now we get the tunability of all the cool parts and still fit in class rules.
Well, and also I'm learning about the different types of racing because there's different categories, and when he's talking about rules, there are different classes to where there's certain parameters to make it fair, so you're running up against people that are within those same parameters. Could you describe what in general, because you're a 4800 class, right? And what does that mean specifically with parameters?
So our class with a 4800 is 37-inch DOT tires, which we run Mickey Thompson's. They've been killing it for us, been great. Single shock per corner, and it has to be a solid axle car. So no independent front suspension and 2 seats. It can't be a single seat car.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, our class has to be a 2-seat car.
Do you always have to have a co-driver with you? Because I think one of the races you weren't able to have a co-driver.
Yeah, so short course now they've kicked us out as far as with co-drivers for safety and liability. They want half the people on the track in case there's an incident. So we get it. So we'll run the 2-seat with the co-driver. We'll definitely hold on to that for desert, hammers, where we might have to winch, where I'm going to get lost and go the wrong way, or co-driver's going to tell me to go lost and go the wrong way. Kind of works out both ways. Where then you move, and this class originally was kind of what the thought was it was going to be a retired unlimited cars.
Okay.
But just kind of as everything, the way the sport evolved, this is a super fun, extremely competitive class that really isn't that hard to get into. Like I said, as far as having, 5 rules basically, other than the obvious safety, but 5 class rules, it's super easy to build to. Like your 4400, your unlimited cars, they're running fully independent suspension, race compound tires, whatever you want to think of, you can do in it. And they're single seat, 2-seat, any of that.
And because they just let them do whatever, they're competing against other people who are allowed to kind of do whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So was there anything else that we didn't touch on? I feel like you hit pretty much everything.
We hit a lot. Lighting, we run All Terrain Concepts lighting. They're great. Local, not, they're growing, they're big. But they support us, they take care of us. Like I said, pretty much everyone that helps, we'll do a good walk around video of it. And if you see someone on this car, they are committed to helping us get where we want to go. So I just help support them to make me keep being allowed to do dumb stuff.
It's a rising tide raises all ships. We come together, and you guys can watch the other videos that we've done together on the off-road stuff. The culture is amazing. If you want to dive deeper into that, please go ahead. I have an off-road section in albums. Yeah, so if you guys are interested in any more of that, go ahead and follow that. And thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I like all this stuff. I'm never going to drive them myself. It doesn't mean that I'm not into it and that I don't want to learn about it.
Now, I feel like what we might need to do, though, if you're coming to Hammers.
I haven't committed yet.
So one other thing is that I've been working on designing and building is my own in-car live streaming. So doing
with the GoPro type thing?
With the GoPro, converter boxes, multi-channel, with either Starlink or cellular. But I think if we could get you there, we get the camera so it's just facing on you. We'll go take a few hot laps around in the desert and watch her try to give the interview. We record and stream audio.
Oh,
we could do the in-car interview live while driving around.
How about with my back, though? How would that do with that?
We could find some nice spots for it.
Okay, yeah, because that's like my biggest concern, because like even right now I'm dying.
Right.
So I don't want to like go in there for like 2 minutes and be like the whole rest of the day.
We could play well with that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So make sure to follow his stuff, and then stay tuned for some more fun.
Awesome.
I've been wandering around trying to find Von Hot Rod. I met him at the Benedict Castle Conquerors car show. He's a whole vibe. He's great. He's doing amazing things, and he's doing like a meet and greet. He was doing it at different locations, so I went to the other location, talked with those guys for a bit, found out he's at the other location, just getting lost. Good kind of lost, though, because you get to look at all these really cool cars like this. So yeah, I'm gonna find him in a second, and then I'm gonna have him share his story. It's pretty cool. This is the Von Hot Rod.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
Can you believe this, SEMA 2024?
It's crazy. It's been a whole year, and I saw you. It's been like at least 6 months.
Oh yeah, easy. Yeah.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, but the industry is just amazing where it's going. You see, all ages here, and where the direction of the motorsports industry has gone is just blown away. Everybody's, cars are a thing of the past. No, we can't collect our cars anymore. We're worried about what the government's doing. But this tells you that there's no end in sight. I mean, it literally does. It's disposable income. People are here, with brand new products for brand new cars. And I love where the industry's going. About 7 months ago, I striped my first Tesla, which was pretty cool, And it opened up a whole new avenue. So lately we've been striping a bunch of EVs. And these guys are like, they thought I invented sliced bread because they've never seen it done. Because everything is usually a wrap. And what's nice about that, it has opened up the industry to, you know, even a hot rod guy like me, touching the new stuff that this younger generation has. And I love it. It's the muscle cars of, I hate to say that, but of the future.
Well, I am partial to the muscle cars.
So
it's not like I'm biased or anything.
I'm petrol forever, you know.
And for people who don't know you, you do pinstriping.
Yes.
And how long have you been doing that for?
Well, I fell into it. So, you know, I had a hot rod shop. I had my hot rod shop for 20 years. And I kind of fell into it. We were flipping cars, and I always added a little striping to the cars to kind of just up the price a little bit. So I was striping hundreds of cars, and I never signed, never told anybody I was doing it. I'd do it at night so nobody could see me. And so I kind of, out of necessity, as I say, I fell into pinstriping. You know, I was taught by a friend of mine called Dave Whittle. He's an old-time pinstriper from way back. He's the guy that gave me a brush and gave me a can of paint, and I just started. I did my first line about 12 inches, and I said, oh, I loved it. I can do this. You know?
It lit your heart on fire immediately.
Yeah, and my thing is I kind of learned when somebody wants me to stripe their car, I just go. I don't pre-draw, I don't sketch it out. Everything was freehand, and that's what I wanted to do. And I just have that wow factor. And then I travel the world, as you know, and I teach classes on pinstriping. I speak at universities and, you know, high schools and stuff like that, trying to show the younger generation that cars are not just for transportation. They're more for collecting. There's something that you can do with a car, whether it be a transmission guy, a brake guy, you know, a tech guy, somebody that works on fuel injection. The industry, there's no end in sight. I mean, marketing, YouTube stuff is just huge in the motorsports industry. And it takes all of us to make it happen. You know, I just didn't wake up one day and say, you know, here I am, this is what I do. You know, it's years of passion and drive. And that's why I try and teach everybody, the younger generation, that it's the passion that I can't teach. It's the drive. You've got to have it in you. You've got to want to do it. You know, I've worked 15-hour days, 20-hour days, you know, by a flashlight just because it was my dream. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to just introduce something that never happened before, do something that, stripe something that, or build a car that nobody's ever thought of. And it's the drive that makes us that. Like I say, I have petrol running in my veins, and that's what I love, you know.
Well, and I love that, like earlier when we were talking, people were discouraging you. When you were
absolutely.
younger, and I was discouraged too. I originally thought I wanted to go to art school, and you have to fit in these boxes, right? And there's so many people now, and young people, that when they hit that discouragement, they completely deflate because they don't have anybody going, hey, you don't need to fit into this box. You do need to work hard. It's not just going to be handed to you. And it's cool that you are sharing that with other people, encouraging other people. And you said that you didn't go to college, right?
I didn't. I was an average student in high school. I didn't come from I was low middle class family. I literally borrowed $5 from my dad to fill a gas can and a lawnmower and push the lawnmower around the neighborhood cutting grass for $10. I bought my first car at 14. I couldn't drive it. Dad had to drive it home. I kept doing the odd jobs to raise money. And by the time I was able to drive, the car was one of the coolest cars in high school. And I was a kid renting on cars in high school, putting in, you know, back then was the stereos, the hijackers, the air shocks, the big tires, the headers. That was me, you know, putting in the hooker headers or the Headman headers in these cars. So I was, you know, doing odd jobs like that, and I always wanted a hot rod shop. In junior high school, I put this proposal together for myself that I wanted to have a hot rod shop that had everything. A teacher saw, you know, what I was doing, and he said, well, you're going about this the wrong way. And I'm just a kid with low education. Reading skills were very poor. And he gave me a little bit of a direction, and so I kept doing it. Average student, nothing special about me in high school. I graduated, signed up for college. I went to college for a week, and it just wasn't for me. I stood up in the middle of class and said, I'm out of here, this is not for me. The instructor yelled at me, said, sit down, you need an education. I said, this is just gonna take too long for me. I'm a hands-on guy, I like to get my hands dirty. And I walked out, he's still yelling at me. And the last thing I remember him saying as the door was closing is, you'll never amount to anything without an education. And I said, watch me, and the door slammed. I walked out, got a grunt job where the job was terrible, but the pay was high. I stockpiled money for 2 years and walked in my boss's office and said, I quit. I've got the money I want. I had 3 cars at the time that I was buying and selling. I sold that, sold everything I had, and just went for it. I opened up my first shop at 1,300 square feet, which was very small. And, you know, working against a wall, it was very difficult, but that was my dream. You know, I worked like I said, 15-hour days sometimes because I had to get the client's car done. And so everything I created is on my own wit. And where I got my so-called trade secret was I listened to my customers. So we came up with a girl line called Hot Rod Girl. Hot Rod Girl is celebrating 33 years in business. And we have it in shops and boutiques, and it's a clothing line. From there, it veered off into jewelry. From there, it veered off into Hot Rod, Von Hot Rod Couture, which is pinstripe purses and shoes. In the club was my warehouse, and I used to have these open house car shows to get people to come see the shop. And it rained one day, and I used to have these bands that would come and play, and there's about 200 cars, rented cars in the parking lot. So I shoved everything in my warehouse to a corner, and I said, just play inside, I'll let people in. We had a barbecue going. I went in there and checked on it, and the band was playing, people were dancing, and people were eating, and I thought, this is a really good idea. So I took everything in the warehouse, had this great warehouse sale, moved everything on the showroom floor, and turned my 5,500 square foot warehouse into a club. And it really grew. And I come to find out that these garage bands that I was booking, they were just, garage bands, and everybody loved them. So I started Von Hot Rod Records, and we're signing these bands to my label. A client walked in and said, hey, do you rent this place out? And so I rented all this stuff, threw an event for them. It was a huge success, but I literally broke even. I made no money on the thing whatsoever, but I learned a lot. And that gave me another gig. Somebody that attended, liked it, attended it, gave me another gig, gave me another gig, gave me another gig. So I opened up Hot Rod's Entertainment and Production Company, and we do corporate banquets, all from a hot rod shop. And I failed hundreds of times. I broke into my savings more than once, drained my account, debated whether to close the store because I'm not making it.
This all comes back to a teacher telling you you're not going to amount to anything because
Yes.
and each one of us, every successful person that I've talked to flopped on their face more times than they can count.
Oh, absolutely.
And have had people not believe in them.
Right.
And have hit that resistance of, oh, this isn't going to work. Find something that lights your heart on fire, that you love and you have a passion for. It's not going to always look how you imagined it to look when you get there, or even on the way, right? You're like, well, I did this, and then this happened, and then this happened, and this happened, and then I did this.
Right.
You keep working hard and put yourself out there. You're like, oh, well, I'll try this. If this doesn't work, you pivot and do something else.
You chalk it up to, I'll never do that again, and you learn from it. You never give up. I've done the tooling, the trademarking, everything, and I failed at it, but I didn't give up.
Yeah.
Nobody ever said you can't do that. I just took a chance. And it's your dream. You can do anything you want in this world. We live in an amazing free country. You can literally do what you want, and it is a blast. Somebody asked me, if you had to do it all over again, what would you do? And I said, you have to understand the failures, the loss of money, the making of money, the cars that I built that didn't sell, that built me into what I am today.
Yeah. You'd be a different person if it was easy.
Yes.
And when you look at all this content from SEMA, when you see all these people with all these beautiful shops and all these things, they didn't start there.
No.
And if that's what you want, if that's truly what lights your heart on fire, you need to understand you need to work hard for it, and it will make it so much more worth it.
Set a little goal, meet that goal, then 3 months later set another goal, meet that goal. You would be amazed at how far you can take yourself by setting little goals. Don't worry about what the haters say. Don't worry about it, because it's your dream, it's your passion, and you work hard, it'll come true. It's amazing the breaks you'll get. I remember during Desert Storm, during the war, I used to work with one light on because I couldn't afford my electric bill. So I'd turn the lights off and work with one light, and I'd see a customer coming, I'd flip on all the lights, and I'd turn the radio on so it looked like we were busy, but it was literally just me by myself working until I was able to go, because again, it was my dream. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to be building hot rods the rest of my life.
Find what you're passionate about and go for it.
Yes, get that petrol running in your veins.
There you go. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I really
Thank you.
appreciate it, and I'm excited to see more of what we both are able to do. And next year,
I know, it's going to be exciting.
It's going to be great. This is Austin. We met at Summit Racing in Reno, and we've been following each other ever since.
We have.
He's also got a YouTube channel.
I do.
And I almost feel like we're competing to see who gets to, you're going to get there before me, but who knows? To 1,000 subscribers.
It's going to be a very close match, but I feel like both of us are going to get there very similarly in one time.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're just going to be excited that we did that,
Yeah.
no matter what. Because a lot of people don't know how much, stress, passion, all that kind of stuff goes into it. So just hitting that mark in general it's one of those things where it's like, once you hit it, you're gonna be like, okay, what's the next one? But it's really important to be in that moment and be like, I have that many people supporting me. And that's one thing that I hope both of us say very, very soon.
Yeah. Could you explain a little bit, because you do a different, not genre of car, but your area of automotive is
category
different.
is very different from what you have. But I feel like we have similarities because obviously you like Baja and I like overlanding. I like, you know, the trucks and everything. I hyper-focus onto Japanese domestic market, which is Toyotas, Nissans, and Hondas. And for me, I guess the fact of the matter is because Fast and Furious, initially, all of these things I grew up with kind of just made me gravitate toward them, right?
Tokyo Drift.
Yes,
I really
Tokyo
liked that.
Drift,
Was my
yes.
favorite out of all of them.
Actually, do you want to know a fun fact about that? So, Tokyo Drift is actually the second movie of a series. The first one is, I forgot it right now, but I will try to remember it. But basically, the director, whole other director from the original cast, and if you can tell, all of the cast is different than the original ones or the ones before, and that was the second movie. Do not watch the first one. It's not very good. I spent the time to watch it. I would not recommend it, but a lot of people don't realize that. And the thing is, with that whole Tokyo Drift scene in Shibuya Center, they actually had to make that in Los Angeles because when they went over to film in Japan, they couldn't get a permit to actually film. So everything, all the crowds, all of that, they weren't staged. That was all natural.
Wasn't there a movie where someone filmed illegally and went through? Was that Tokyo Drift?
That was it. And so what happened was one of the guys actually from the crew, I don't know if he spent a night in jail, but he got arrested because he was basically the fall guy for the movie because he was like, if anything happens, I'll take the fall. But the one thing about that whole experience is that it was so genuine because you're like, I don't know if we're gonna get caught or whatever it may be, but it just made the movie so much more genuine. It made it so that when you were there as an actor, you were in the zone. You loved it, and everyone was like, oh my God, are we gonna get caught? What's going on? So it was just one of those things where when it's not prepared, when it's not staged, it makes everything a lot more realistic, and it makes it more you can connect to it a lot more. So
and that kind of brought your interest
Yes.
into would they consider? I guess here they're considered imports.
Yeah, so they are imports, and so JDM really to me is kind of okay, so for USDM you have the power, right? You have all of these big V8s that can go fast, very quickly, straight fast, whatever you want to call it. So for me, I like the little 4-cylinders, the inline 6s, the 2Js, 1Js, K-Series, B-Series, the Beams motor 3S GTE from the Lexus or Toyota in Japan. But for me, it was just because, it was one of those things where I love a good V8, don't get me wrong. The Braps, that's why I worked there at Summit, because it was one of those things where it's in the automotive industry, but for me, I just connect more for the art. And I guess you can say that a lot of the JDM, liveries, wide body, whatever you want to call it, it's all art. Because, people want to style things differently. When you go to car meets, you see a lot of GT86s, you see a lot of S2000s, you see a lot of these cars, and they're all the same, but they're all very different on whoever the owner is that is building these cars, right? And for me, I love the art because it really sets the car apart. And I don't even care if you just got the car and it's your first year building it, it's progression, obviously. You're going to do things differently than everyone else, and it's personality, really. What it is that you're taking this car, this chassis, and making it your own. And I love that because, shoot, cars are expensive. Let's not let's put that out there.
At the very end of it, right?
Yeah, you don't want to see the bill. That's not something you want to look at. But it is one of those things where the more you put into it, I don't even care if it's time, passion, whatever it is, you look back and you're like, I made this. This is amazing.
I was talking to the girls at The Real Deal Revolution, that embodiment of empowerment,
right.
And how when you do hard things, when you do things you don't think you could do, when you actually do that, I said it yesterday, I'm going to repeat myself. We can help other people by setting them up. We can help teach them, provide them tools.
Absolutely.
We can't give them that empowerment because they need to earn it
Yes.
through those actions. And
Absolutely.
It's cool that you talk about the art. And that's the really cool thing about all this automotive stuff is that that's what your perspective on what you really enjoy is art, and stuff like this is what, because I am a partial to the muscle cars.
Absolutely.
And the classic cars. So
yeah,
that's
we're a good clash.
I know, and it's cool.
amazing.
We're gonna eventually do some, because I want to learn more stuff about what you're doing. So we'll definitely collaborate maybe.
Right.
maybe sooner rather than later.
Hopefully sooner rather than later.
With tool stuff.
You inspire me with all of that because of your drive, and I see a lot of myself in you, and I love that because when it comes to automotive, everyone, you know, we do things differently, but at the end of the day, like you're saying, the passion, the hard work, it's one of those things where you kind of have to fail to succeed in this industry.
Everywhere, though.
Yes,
it's everywhere.
Not just this industry, but just everywhere. But the more you fail, which I will say 100%, if anyone comes up to me and says, do you regret any of your failures? I'm like, yes, but I would not change them for the one, for anything.
You wouldn't even be who you are today
Absolutely not.
Without that. And same thing with, I tell a lot of people about my grief because of my dad dying. I wouldn't be who I am today. Not saying that I would absolutely have him here now if I could.
Yeah, no,
I still
not.
Wouldn't be the same person. I wouldn't be here at SEMA right now.
Absolutely
I wouldn't like it's you do what you can.
Yes.
And you work your tail off.
Yes.
And
everything happens for a reason.
We give it a reason
yes,
too, right?
We do. Yeah,
we turn it on its head.
Exactly. And we just make it so that every single thing that happens in anyone's life, you know, whether it's a best friend or your own, you take that energy and you try to make the best out of it.
Yeah.
Because
100%.
There's nothing else you can do about it. So you just take the best out of it and you learn from it, and then from there you move forward. Because you know what, it's one of those things where my catchphrase, if you guys watch my videos, it's always stay positive and stay true to who you are. Because I feel like as you grow, you kind of, there's times where you feel like you should be someone different. You should be what social media, whatever wants you to be.
Yeah.
But you can't, because there's only one of you, and
100%.
you are the best to you.
Yep, exactly. If you want more of that, go ahead and follow him. And you guys are awesome.
Thank you.
I'm going to see you tomorrow.
I will be here tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good. Well, I don't know in terms of...
Don't remind me. You'll see her tomorrow.
Yeah, sounds
You'll see
good.
me later, maybe.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. All those.